Thank you for clicking on this episode of Rank the Movies. If you can tell what we're talking about today, it is my favorite TV show of all time. I've got my Pops. I've got my complete series. I've got my Troy and Abed in the Morning glass. That's good in the morning. And I have my Greendale merch. Before I start talking about the show Community, which is, of course, what we're talking about this week, I want to bring up that I'm wearing a hat and a t-shirt, both with Greendale Community College on it. And I actually did go to college, and these two items, I own more clothing that says Greendale on it than my actual alma mater. This mug, which is from the TV show, which is only missing the Greendale logo, would actually also be more other things I have that are, I don't have a lot from my own college, but I have a lot representing Greendale, because I really like Greendale. Alright, so what are we talking about here? We're talking about the TV show Community. Now, way back, in the way back machine, I did talk about Community a little bit in my top 10 favorite TV shows of all time, with Community coming out as number 1. So why have I decided to come back and revisit it? Because this is my favorite show of all time, and I gave it maybe 5 minutes to really talk about how great this show is. And of course, I didn't have all this crap to show off. I didn't have the complete set of Greendale Pops, of Community Pops. I wish they actually had more. I would have loved to have seen a Pierce or an Ian Duncan released in this set. Maybe some of the other characters from the latter seasons, like Frankie or Elroy. I would have really liked that. And yeah, I know there are a lot of people, they make their own Community stuff, and they sell it, and that's great. That's kind of, I believe that's how you get these mugs, is that these are not licensed through anyone, they're just made, which is great, because who doesn't want a Troy and Abed in the Morning mug? I really do have liquid in there, and it's very enjoyable to drink out of that mug, I'm just saying. So, Community, let's do a broad overview before I get to the rankings, because that's right, Rank the Movies is actually doing rankings this week. Community is a show created by Dan Harmon, the man who would go on to help create the hit sensational show Rick and Morty. It is set in Greendale Community College, which is a college in Colorado. This college is one of 2 community colleges in the area, with City College being nearby. I thought that was always really funny that, you know, it's one of 2 community colleges in that area. Like, seriously, why are there 2? Why are there 2 so close together that in one episode, which I believe I will get into in a little more detail, they actually show a picture of City College expanding and enveloping Greendale. So they're close enough that was an actual possibility. It centers around Jeff Winger, who I have in pop form right here. Jeff Winger is a disgraced lawyer. They find out that his college degree isn't real, and therefore he has to replace it, otherwise he will be disbarred. He's not allowed to practice law until he has a new degree. He enrolls at Greendale because he represented Ian Duncan, who is a professor of psychology at the school, and he hopes that Duncan will help him get through the 4 years to get his degree in the fastest way possible. He also decides, he finds himself very attracted to Britta Perry, who is this low little pop right under Jeff, and decides, they're both in a Spanish class together, and decides to trick her into believing he is a certified Spanish tutor. This blows out of proportion when Abed Nadir, this lovely guy right here, decides to notify other people, and the study group is created with Troy, Annie, and Shirley joining them with Pierce, who of course I have a Chevy Chase pop, but it is not a Community pop, and it's not the National Lampoon's Christmas Vacation pop of Chevy Chase, which is the better one to have if you're looking to create a more Pierce-looking pop. I have his Caddyshack pop, which works fine. I just believe it's Pierce, a younger Pierce trying to impress people with Hawthorne wipes, though in one episode he does state that he's never gone golfing in his life, though he's been a member at many clubs. That's also part of the gas leak here, and I'll hopefully get into that. Anyways, the study group is a Spanish study group, and their teacher is Ben Chang, who is this guy right up here. There's also Dean Pelton, who is another one of the main characters. Basically, it's just about their misadventures in this college life. Some of them are very extreme and weird, which are some of my favorite episodes, and some of them are much more subtle and nuanced, which is really great, because this show really does run that spectrum of everything over the 6 seasons that it got in the 100-and-something episodes, which made up Community. There aren't a lot of episodes I don't care for. It's really hard for me to pick out my favorite episodes because I like so many of them. Whereas the episodes that make me go, when I'm rewatching this show, which I've done many times, it's a lot harder to find those episodes. Just because a lot of the characters are there. When Dan Harmon is part of the show, because there's one season he's not, it is just a fantastic ride of well-written scripts, good comedy, and great characters. Which is a lot of what I love about this show. Now, how did I become familiarized with Community? This is a weird story for me, because I was looking back, preparing for this video, and going, man, fate really tried to get me to watch this show right from the beginning. Like, somebody out there knew I was going to fall in love with this show, and they wanted me to do it right away when it premiered in Season 1, and instead of when I did get into it. Because I had watched Joel McHale, who plays Jeff Winger, on The Soup. And I had even seen the episode of The Soup where he talks about being in Community, where he talks about doing this TV show, and hearing about it, and hearing the plot, and going, oh, that's kind of interesting, and then never really looking at it again. Fast forward a year, we are now in Season 2, and one night I'm waiting for something to come on NBC. I don't even remember what I was waiting for anymore, but I was waiting for something to air on NBC, and it happened that they were running the Season 2 finale of Community that night. And it was the second paintball episode, for a few paintballs more, or is it a fistful of paintballs? I can't remember which one, but it's one of those 2 episodes. And all of a sudden I see the ending where Britta and Shirley are on a go-kart, and they're shooting all of these Stormtrooper-esque community college people. And I watched it, and I went, oh, this looks pretty interesting. Again, I didn't start watching Community then. Then, fast forward a few months, I remember shopping at Best Buy a lot, right around the time of the Season 3 premiere, and on the TVs in Best Buy, they kept running the same segment that John Goodman was coming in to play a character in Season 3 of Community. Every time I went into Best Buy, for months, that was ran, and I still didn't want to watch Community. Finally, one day I walk into Best Buy, and I see that they're having a sale on TV shows. And they have each season of Community, which at this point was the first 3 seasons, at $10 a piece. And I go, man, this sounds really familiar, but I have no idea what this show is. I've just told you why it sounded really familiar. I was interested in it when Joel McHale talked about it on The Soup. I got interested by watching a part of an episode, and I got interested by John Goodman's appearance as the AC repair dean, or vice dean, coming onto the show in the 3rd season. I had been interested and just never really connected that that was a show called Community. So I decided, what the crap, I'll just buy the 3 seasons, I'll check them out, we'll see what happens. And I had seen the 4th season at a used store because that had already aired and was out. And I'm like, whatever, if I like it, I'll go run and buy that one, and it'll be cool, it'll be fine. So I sat down and I started watching Community, and the next day, I had to go out and get the 4th season because I already knew I was in love with this show and these characters. And I have been ever since. And I have tried to expose as many of my friends as I can to Community because I think they'll really enjoy it too. Because that's just it. It's a great show. It's not, I get it. It's not a show for everyone. But if you've got a very specific sense of humor, this is one of the best shows that has ever aired for those kind of people. I'm in the middle of a rewatch right now, and by that, I mean I got like 5 episodes left, 6 episodes left of the series, and then it's done, and I'm going to be heartbroken because I'm just going to want more Greendale and more Community, and I'm going to watch something else. And then like 8 to 12 months from now, I'll go, I'm going to watch Community again. And I'm going to start this process all over again of rewatching some of my favorite Community episodes, and everything else in between, the good, the bad, and everything else. So now that I've given a quick rundown of what the pilot of Community was, which was this is a Spanish study group in the first season. In the second season, they are no longer a Spanish study group. They have become an anthropology study group. By season 3, they're done with anthropology, and they're a chemistry or biology. It's a science study group at that point. They're either in chemistry or biology. It's biology. They have to make terrariums. Biology. They're a biology study group because they're taking different classes. And apparently to make the credit, you need 2 semesters of each class. Hence how you can get it over a season. So season 3, they are a biology study group. Season 4, they're a history study group. Season 5, they are no longer a study group as Jeff Winger has graduated and through various reasons is now teaching at Greendale while everyone else is still a student. And they are now the Save Greendale Committee, which is basically what they are in season 6 as well, though I think they downplayed the Save Greendale Committee, and they're basically just like the group who are now running Greendale with a mix of students, because if they want to do an episode where somebody's in a class, they have characters who can go be in a class, and faculty. But there's not a lot of class episodes. I think by the time you hit season 6, there is a class about grifting. Grifting 101 is an episode that does talk about grifting, and they're in a grifting class. And then none of the other episodes are popping out at me that they are class-centered episodes. That it's not centered on something else happening, something else going on, them planning something. So it's kind of an interesting take on how this show evolved from the original pilot of a bunch of students in a Spanish class into some of those pretenses can be dropped because at this point we just want to study the characters and have them go on these weird and wild adventures. And they do, and they go on a lot of weird and wild adventures throughout the course of all 6 seasons. Now let's start ranking things. I think I've talked up Community enough. It's a great show with a great cast. And a great supporting cast as well. Like, it's got a lot of memorable side characters, like Magnitude, Leonard, who likes this post and is also Jeff Winger's greatest rival. You have Garrett, who has something wrong with him, and they want to save Garrett, but nobody can actually save Garrett. You have Neil, who is introduced as a primary, secondary character, which is a weird term, I know. In one of my favorite episodes. You also have Vicky, who's a great side character and a great foil for Pierce in a couple episodes. You have... I have another one. His face isn't... I have his face, but I can't grab at his name. I'm not even... But there's a great plethora of side characters that also incorporate this school that get zigzagged in. And of course you have the Dean, who just gets more outrageous as the show goes on, but still going through like an actual arc of a character and changing and bettering himself and becoming a more interesting character as the show progresses. So, let's rank some stuff. First off, let's look at the 6 seasons by themselves. So as I've said, how they've changed and grown as a group, I'm actually going to rank my seasons in the order of which is my favorite season to which is my least favorite season. So my least favorite season out of all of Community is season 4. This is the season that Dan Harmon is not the showrunner of the show anymore, and he's not the head writer. The episodes take a slight dip in their quality, and it's very obvious. It's still very entertaining, and it still has some episodes that stick with me, that make me go, oh man, I want to watch this episode. But it's also the season with the most episodes that makes me go, I guess I'm watching this because this is where I am. I think every show has those episodes. It's just a lot of them are in season 4 for me. Again, it's not a bad season, and it has some really, really interesting and fun concepts. But I think there's just better Community out there in these 6 seasons. At number 5 is season 6. It is the final season. Again, I think it's got a lot of strong episodes and a lot of really fun episodes. The grifting episode I mentioned. They have an episode where they're all in an RV towing a giant hand to sell to someone. It's a great concept. It's a great episode. But it's that whole that the show became more about the characters and less about the college, which kind of lowers it because some of the episode, the class specific episodes are a lot of fun in the other seasons. And again, we only get one or two of them in the 6th season. And again, but there are still some great episodes and some great concepts that it's definitely worth checking out. It's a fun season. It was made on Yahoo Screen because NBC actually canceled the show after the 5th season, and so Yahoo Screen picked it up for season 6. So the episodes also run a little longer, which is good. You get a lot of good content, and I love Frankie and Elroy, who were brought in to replace some of the outgoing cast, because the other problem this show ran into is a lot of its characters started leaving. Chevy Chase as Pierce Hawthorne left after season 4 due to disputes with the network. And a lot of people say Dan Harmon, but Dan Harmon wasn't there for season 4. So he left at the end of season 4, makes a cameo in season 5, and is actually killed off in season 5. In the middle of season 5, Troy Barnes leaves. He's played by Donald Glover. He leaves because Donald Glover wanted to go and work on other projects, which is fine. That's what happens. But he left the show, and then in season 6, Yvette Nicole Brown, who plays Shirley Bennett, she also left the show to deal with her father's failing health. She does make a few appearances throughout the season in cutaways, basically, but overall, that's one of the things. So they had to replace and bring in new characters. Ben Chang ended up getting kind of permanently added in to the study group or the Save Greendale committee to fill one of those spots. And they create 2 new characters called Frankie and Elroy in season 6. Frankie Dart and Elroy Patashnik in season 6, who are really great characters. They are great characters, and I would love to have seen more of them throughout the series. I think they could have been characters from the beginning, and it would have been a lot of fun to see them grow and interact in some of the episodes in the earlier seasons. But yeah, season 6 is my number 5. At number 4 is season 5. This is when Dan Harmon first came back and started to do and started to try to fix what season 4 had done. Which is why season 4 had Jeff graduate, so now he had to write himself as to why Jeff is back in Greendale. Why are these... If we're saying that's only a 4-year degree, everyone should have graduated then between these seasons, and how are we bringing them all back? And then he had to push forward with what was left. And I think, again, season 4 has some great episodes. That's a trilogy of episodes that are really fun because they introduce a concept in season 3 called the Ass Crack Bandit, who is somebody who puts coins down people's butts when they bend over down their cracks. And in season 5, you get a huge episode about them trying to find it based on like Red Dragon, Silence of the Lambs, those kind of thrillers. And it's a great episode. That's the episode you learn Pierce has died. The next episode is them, after Pierce's funeral, he has decided in his will nobody can get anything unless they take a polygraph test. So it's a bottle episode where they're all just in the study room, which is the main focal area of this show, and they're having a polygraph test done, and all this stuff is coming out, and it's just a great episode. It's actually the one they did the reading for charity via YouTube last year, which was a great time. I loved watching it. And the trilogy ends with Troy finding out that Pierce has left him everything if he sails Pierce's yacht around the world over the course of a year. Troy decides to take it, and his final episode is they are playing a giant game of hot lava over the entire school, with the winner getting a comic book that's worth $50,000. It's just a great concept episode, and that's what the show did a lot of, were great concept episodes. And it's a great arc that season has. Not to mention it had the character of Buzz Hickey added in to kind of fill in for Pierce, and it returned Ian Duncan, who is a first and second season character, back to the cast. It's a good season. I really like it. At number 3, season 1. It's the start of the show. It takes a little time to get going, but once it finds its footing, the show takes off, and it's just so good. I went over what the pilot was, but it's still a couple of episodes in before everything really starts clicking. because the first thing the show had to do was define their characters. But they decided not to define their characters as who they were going to be for the show. They decided to define these characters as who they wanted to be in that school, and then have the group kind of pull them out of their shells and become who they actually are. With Troy starting off being a former high school jock and acting like one, turning into Abed's best friend who's willing to join in his weirdness and his shenanigans. It's just one of the great examples of that. So once they were done with that, the season takes off, and it has some really great episodes. It has the paintball episode, which is the first paintball episode. And it is a really fun season. And of course, it's the first season. But it only ranks at number 3 for me. Number 2 is season 2. That's right. Number 2 is season 2. It's the only one that actually made its spot in order. I love season 2. It's a great season. It's really the uphill of the show, because obviously, if you're just scratching off seasons, you know what my number 1 is. But it's a great uphill towards what is the number 1. It has some fantastic episodes hidden throughout it, especially with them doing their anthropology class, them getting into other things, and I'm going to talk about a bunch of season 2 episodes in a little bit, and I'm going to talk about season 3 episodes, which is my number 1 favorite season, because it's just the most episodes I love. And again, I'm going to get into a bunch of season 3 episodes in a minute as well. So, because now that I've ranked the seasons, I'm actually going to rank I sat down with all 100 and something episodes, and I looked at them, and I made my top 10 favorite episodes of Community. And I'm going to quickly go through it and kind of give you what the episode is about. This was actually really hard, because again, this show has more episodes I like than episodes I don't like. So just putting it together, it also helped me see what is my favorite season and what is my least favorite season, based just on the listing, because season 4 isn't on here. It had one episode that made it pretty far, but it just wasn't good enough. It was an interesting episode. I really liked the episode, but it wasn't one of my top 10 favorite episodes. So let's do this. Let's count them down. Number 10, season 6, episode 8, Intro to Recycled Cinema. This is a fun episode. Ben Chang becomes a breakout with an ad for ham, where he says, "Ham, girl!" And he starts to be looked at by Steven Spielberg for a voice in the Play-Doh movie as the color blue. It's a ridiculous statement. With that, he leaves Greendale, and everyone is shocked that he just up and left them to become famous. And Abed is sad because he had actually started shooting a movie with Chang, but he can't finish it, obviously, because he doesn't have Chang. It is then realized that he should finish it using the footage he has of Chang to make a 81-minute movie that arguably stars Ben Chang, the ham girl guy. They set out to do it. They make it into a sci-fi movie, and it's just kind of this intercut of how it looks in the movie versus how the filming of it looks. And you got all these bizarre costumes, and it's the struggle of Abed being told that he just has to make something. It doesn't have to be good. It's probably not going to be good, but he just has to make something. He's got a short time frame and not a lot of creative control, because he's got to work the footage he has of Chang, which is just him sitting behind a desk, into this movie. And it's just a great time, with some great bits of dialogue that really exemplify why this show was so good, even in its final season. Number 9 is season 2, episode 4, Basic Rocket Science. This is one of those episodes I wanted to mention a little while ago. I'm like, I'm gonna talk about it. I need to hold back. So the Greendale 7 have to clean a Kentucky Fried Chicken space simulator because City College is about to release its space simulator. It's going to start having a space simulator, meaning it's going to have more enrollments because more people are going to want to go to City College. The space simulator is Russian-made because it has CCCP written on it, and this is all set up like it's Apollo 13 at the beginning. and they're to clean it off for the actual people who will be flying it. This is a punishment because they created a flag for the Greendale flag competition that is an anus with the words E pluribus anus written on it. I'm not sure if I have it on anything. I can't imagine. I know it's not on the hat or the shirt I'm wearing. So that is their punishment. They end up entering into the flight simulator, which then gets towed by City College to try to destroy their launch. And they have to do the flight simulator to figure out where they are so they can try to get it back in time for the press conference. It is a great episode. It is a hilarious episode because it is trying to be Apollo 13, Armageddon, all of those space epics that were happening around that time of people in space. But it's just a simulator, and it's a Kentucky Fried Chicken simulator. So they have to keep like the herbs and spices in line, and that's how you do it. It's hilarious. Number 8, Season 1, Episode 21, Contemporary American Poultry. This is a take on like Goodfellas and crime dramas, where the study group decides they can't get the the chicken strips that the school, chicken fingers is what they call them. They can't get the chicken fingers at the school because everybody wants them and they can never get to the cafeteria in time. So they have Abed become the new employee of the cafeteria who's making the fingers so they can get them. But then Abed starts to make deals with other people in exchange for fingers for favors, and it turns into this crime drama where everyone's kicking Jeff, who is generally the leader of the group, out for Abed because Abed is giving them things. And it ends with a 16 Candles parody. It's a lot of fun, and it's a great example of the first season knocking it out of the park for an episode. Because it is a lot of fun. Number 7, Season 5, Episode 8, App Development and Condiments. This is my favorite Season 5 episode. In it, a new app is being beta tested at Greendale. The app is called Meow Meow Beans. It is a rating system where you can rate anyone who's on the app 1 to 5 Meow Meow Beans. And somehow this turns it into a dystopian future where 5s rule over everyone, and everyone is classed based on how many Meow Meow Beans they have. It is hilarious because it's like it's like Logan's Run almost, with how they did it. And it's just hilarious because the school so quickly falls into these kind of traps and chaos on this show. It's always funny when you get to see an episode where they do it. And this is one of my favorite episodes, where the school's all of a sudden everyone just accepts it's a totalitarian place. Even the dean is under, because he's not a 5, he's a 4. So he's like serving the 5s, and Jeff is trying to overthrow the 5s. So he's trying to become a 5. Well, he's trying to overthrow Shirley because he believes she is unsincere in wanting to be a 5. Or just unsincere as a person. She just happens to be a 5. Alright. Episode number 6. Season 3, Episode 19. Curriculum Unavailable. This is part of the Season 2 finale set. And it's one of the final 4 episodes of that season. So the Greendale 7 are kicked out of Greendale after starting a riot at another student's funeral, who I didn't talk about in side characters, Starburns, a man who has literal stars shaved into his sideburns, has died. He comes back in later seasons. And a riot has erupted, and they are held responsible and kicked out of Greendale. They go to see a psychiatrist because Abed believes the dean has been replaced by a doppelganger, which is 100% true. Ben Chang has taken over the school. And they go to the therapist, and it's a flashback episode, but all of the flashbacks are new footage. Like, nothing from previous episodes is used. It's all 100% original footage used for this flashback episode. And it's just hilarious, and it's a lot of fun. And it's the second time they did it. They do it in Season 2 as well, and it's pretty fun there. But that one, all of the flashbacks are kind of intertwined. So they're only flashing back like 4 or 5 moments. This one, the flashbacks are all over the place. And I think it's a much better done episode, and it's hilarious. Though the season 2 episode is also really good, and by the end of it, I was debating which one I was going to put on this list, and this is the one I picked. But it is a great episode, as the psychiatrist who's hired by Chang to make them think Abed is crazy keeps trying to give them revelations to get them off the scent of Chang, which ends with them just going, none of this makes sense. It's a great episode. Number 5, Season 2, Episode 14, Advanced Dungeons & Dragons. Now, if you want to check this episode out, you're going to have to actually get either the Season 2 DVD or the box set, because it is not streaming anywhere as of right now. The study group bands together, except for Pierce, to play Dungeons & Dragons with Neil. It is because he is currently being called Fat Neil, and they believe he is suicidal. They're going to play his favorite game, Dungeons & Dragons, to make him stop being suicidal, to brighten his day and make him feel like he is part of a community. The problem is Pierce feels jilted, because the Season 2, Pierce is kind of made out to be the villain of the season. Even though he is part of the study group, he does do things with them. He is often played as the villain. He's unhappy that Neil is sitting in his chair, and he's unhappy that he wasn't invited to play Dungeons & Dragons. So it turns into everyone versus Pierce, as Pierce unintentionally makes things worse for Neil. In the end, of course, Pierce fails, Neil is really happy, and kind of forms a friendship with Pierce. The reason this particular episode is not streaming is because Ben Chang is playing a dark elf in the D&D campaign, and he painted himself head to toe to be a dark elf and gave himself white hair, and it was taken down due to the fact that they say he is in blackface. Though, if you look close, as the episode is happening, it's not his face. He's literally probably painted every inch of his body to be this dark elf, because you can see it on his hands, and it's going up into the sleeve. I'm not going to argue right or wrong on this episode, but I love this episode regardless. It is a great episode of Community. Number 4, Season 3, Episode 20, Digital Estate Planning. This is the episode, obviously, immediately following Curriculum Unavailable, and it's kind of weird, because they're building towards them finally figuring out what Chang has done in stopping him, and this is just this sidestep episode. Pierce's dad had died earlier in the season because Jeff yelled at him, and he had a heart attack. And this is part of him giving up his will, is that Pierce and 7 friends are to play a video game that his father had made called Castle Hawkthorne, and whoever wins gets all of the inheritance, because they're supposed to play against each other, but obviously they're going to play together, and Pierce is soon to be revealed by the end of the episode. Half-brother is the other person playing, and is the only person playing against the rest of the group. The episode is outside of a few setup scenes and a few other scenes, is almost entirely rendered in 8-bit animation. It has an 8-bit theme, which I actually have as my cell phone ringtone. It has an 8-bit theme. It is just a lot of fun. It is a lot of fun just watching them do their voices and have this 8-bit episode happen as it's going on, as they're playing this video game and figuring out how things work. It's a great episode, and it's always one I love watching. Number 3, Season 3, Episode 14, Pillows and Blankets. This is also another one that's it's the second part of a 2-part episode, but the first part is just the setup. The second part is really the one to watch. Watch the first part to get the setup, and then watch the second part. The full story is, running out of money while making the 3rd season, they decided to do an episode where they could reuse all of the costumes and sets from the previous episode. So they wouldn't have to build anything new, do anything different, and could save a ton of money just by doing 2 episodes with the same stuff. But they decided to do the second part of this episode in the style of a Civil War documentary, as Abed, who has been making a pillow fort, and Troy, who's been making a blanket fort, are struggling to see which fort will go down so the other one can expand, because there's also the idea that there's a Guinness World Record that can be set for longest blanket and or pillow fort if one of them gets out of the way of the other one. So it's this whole thing, and you see the study group split between the two, and most of them kind of stay neutral, but Shirley and Pierce each join either Troy or Abed, and it is shot like a documentary, so there isn't a lot of footage. There's a lot of like pictures, and Keith David, who would go on to play Elroy Patashnik in season 6, actually does the narration for this episode. It is cleverly made. It is a great episode. And definitely, one that, once you find out why they made it, it's like, man, this is a really good episode for just being the money saver of the season. And it was a really good episode. Number 2, Season 2, Episode 8, Corporate Calligraphy. This is their first bottle episode. I mentioned they did a polygraph episode, which is also a bottle episode. This was the first one in Season 2. It is a hilarious episode. The group are finishing working on a project for their anthropology class, and before they leave, Annie Edison realizes that someone has stolen a purple gel pen that she had, and she just wants her pen back, and she makes a big stink out of it. So all of the members of the study room are now stuck in the study room, because if anyone leaves, they're obviously the pen thief. So it turns into this huge thing of accusations and just arguments as they try to figure out who the pen thief is. And Abed, being a very meta character, is immediately calling it a bottle episode. That they're in a bottle episode, and that he hates it because he doesn't get how a lot of people handle emotions. So he hates it because there's sarcasm and nuance going on that he just doesn't care about. And he just wants someone to say they stole the pen. At this point, Pierce has broken legs from a previous episode, and they cut his casts off because they believe he was probably scratching at his legs with the pen. And it is a great episode. And while all this is going on, because a bottle episode only works if you have something, much more interesting going on, supposedly interesting, going on outside of the room. And in this particular instance, it is a puppy parade, which is apparently exactly what it sounds like. It is a parade of puppies through the quad of Greendale. That is what's going on outside of this bottle episode. And I think one of the best lines is at the end when they're leaving and the dean is sitting there saying, "Oh, you missed the puppy parade!" And Jeff Winger basically tells him that he's an unmiraculous bastard because he wasn't in the bottle episode. Also, they agree that the pen was stolen by a ghost when you find out it was actually stolen by a monkey given to Troy, released by Abed back in contemporary American poultry. So yeah, it's a great episode. And my number 1 community episode is Season 3, Episode 4, Remedial Chaos Theory. This is an interesting episode because Troy and Abed have moved in together into their own apartment, and it's the housewarming party. And they're going to play some Yahtzee, but the pizza delivery man shows up with their pizza. So Jeff decides to roll the 6-sided die to determine who will go get the pizza. And it shows the 7 outcomes of the die roll, because you have all 6 of the regular dice, which goes out and shows that it's a different timeline, that Jeff is creating different timelines by rolling the dice. So it goes out of the prime timeline, and it lands in, I can't remember where it lands first, but it's like number 3. So we see what happens over the next few minutes if this one person goes to leave the room. And it shows all 6 options, and then you realize that there are 7 people at the table. So Abed catches the die to make Jeff go, which is the prime timeline. And then at the end, you find out that the most wackiest, weirdest one, where Pierce gets shot, and there's a fire, and that this is the darkest timeline, and that everyone needs to wear felt beards until they can grow their own, because again, it's the darkest timeline. Because Pierce ends up dead, and Jeff loses an arm, and Troy has to wear a voice box because he tried to eat a flaming gnome, because that's how you kill one. And yeah, it is a hilarious episode. It is by far my favorite episode of the show. It was a really easy pick to go to put it at number one, because it does. It is such a unique episode and such an interesting episode. And even the plot of it being that, well, what is the difference? Like, if you roll a die to send someone out of the room, what happens when each person leaves? Like, what are the options here of what could possibly happen throughout? So yeah, those are my top 10 favorite Community episodes. I've ranked the seasons in my order of how I feel they are, my favorite seasons. Overall, like I said, this is my favorite show. I love watching it. I love rewatching it. I grab Community stuff whenever I can. I even have a thermos. In one of the episodes, the episode where they're all in the polygraph, each character is given a tube of cryogenically frozen sperm that Pierce filled. And I actually found a thermos that kind of looks like one of the tubes that they're given. It's a little slimmer. And I bought that just because it reminded me of an episode of Community. So I love this show. It is a great show. I kind of wish Troy Nobbin in the Morning was a real daytime talk show, because I'd watch it. And everyone says 6 seasons in a movie. And I would love a movie. I'd love to see a movie. I'd love to see what Dan Harmon comes up with to continue the story of these characters through to that kind of format. I'd be interested to see it. Anyways, I'm going to stop talking about Community now. Next week, we're already up to next week. I don't know what that acting was. Next week, I'm actually going to take something from Community, a question asked in an episode of Community, and I am going to take the knowledge I have, and I'm going to answer it. I'm going to answer the question by taking the 30 movies I've seen featuring this actor, and I'm going to try to answer a question. Is Nicolas Cage good or bad? Tune in to Rank the Movies next week to check that one out. So don't forget to like, subscribe, comment if you got something to say. Subscribe so you don't miss Nicolas Cage, good or bad. And like the video. Otherwise, I will see you next week. I am Martin Prevost. This is Rank the Movies. Have a great week. And sit down and enjoy some of your favorite TV show this week, regardless of what it is. See you later.